Hi, so this 30-minute Yin video is really for runners. It is working on the calves and the Achilles tendons, the glutes and the quadriceps and hip flexors, all big muscles that we use when we run. So, hi, the first pose is going to be a toe stand. So toe stand, you have to bend your feet underneath and you sit your hips down, back down onto your heels to start to stretch through the plantar fascia of the feet. You can take a block and bring a block underneath your butt, and that just makes it a little bit easier. The whole idea about toe stand is to start to stretch underneath the soles of your feet, a lot of fascia through here, and then it also starts to work up into the Achilles tendon, so it's a really nice stretch to the Achilles tendons as well, and then that has repercussions through the rest of the back line, through the calves and through the hamstrings. Toe stand's a little bit hard, so we're only going to be here for a minute and a half. If it gets really intense, you can also bring your hands down onto the floor, which just alleviates it a little bit and just has a slightly different angle. Or you can be like Nicola right at the back, who is just sitting on her heels. So feel, particularly with this pose, you can move in and out, you can bring your hands down, you can bring them back up. You can take the block in, you can bring the block out. It can be really intense. You know, we're just not used to stretching the underneath of our soles of our feet. And this is a really nice pose to start with as well. A lot of the meridian lines begin and end in the feet. So Chinese medicine based on channels and energy channels and working energy through the body. And the feet and the hands are both very sensitive. And we can really start to feel the energy working through there. Okay, so we've got another 20 seconds in this pose. And then slowly coming out. So you can come out, you can tap the tops of your feet down, which is really about stimulating energy, or you can just choose to sit back down onto your heels. And then maybe just close your eyes for a minute here, or 30 seconds or so, just finding where or how you're feeling, and allowing the rebound of the pose. So rebound, big part of the Yin practice. Coming into the sensations of how that pose was and the after effect of the long held stretch. And then from here we're going to continue to work into the back line. So you're going to bring, this is actually more about myofascia release. So you're going to bring 2 tennis balls and you're going to place them in the part where your calf starts to bulge out as it comes up. So you're getting them right into the head of the gastrocnemius muscles, both balls, and then you're going to sit down and the weight of your body is going to push the balls into the muscles. So it's really important here that you start to move the balls so it starts to get into the trigger points of the muscles, that's the sore bits of the muscles. And then you can also start to move your hips like from side to side a little bit, so you're kind of giving your calf muscles a massage. And normally we're here, this myofascial release, it's called myofascial release, where you're pushing the balls down into the fascia and creating compression, which is going to release the fascia. And you can move the balls around a little bit, which helps to release the fascia too, or you can just choose to just stay still where you are. And then make sure, because this myofascial release, the compressive points ease quite easily, so then move the balls again to find the place that it starts to work into the trigger points. This is a really, really nice release of the calf muscles. So the 2 calf muscles, the gastrocnemius at the back and the soleus, they tend to get really tight. We tend, particularly with the soleus muscle, as a key stabilizing muscle of the lower leg, and we tend to overuse it or overexert it in place of our glute muscles. So it's nice to release this out. And then you're going to come slowly out of that. So you take the balls away. So we're done with the balls now, and we're going to move into a frog pose. So there's lots of different variations of frog. The first frog pose, which is one of my favorites, is up against the wall. So to do frog up against the wall, you need to scoot your butt right up against the wall. And then you just bring your legs wide. And you start to get the stretch in between your inner thighs. If it starts to niggle a little bit on the tendons just below the knee, then you can bend your knee a little bit, and that just releases the tendons. But you can choose to have your legs straight, or if it doesn't, or whichever is better for you. So this is a really nice option for frog, particularly if you have something going on with your knees, you don't have any pressure on your knees. The other option here is to come onto your front, and then you're still getting this nice stretch through your inner thighs. For frog, and the reason why it's called frog is because the legs look like frog legs, you can have your feet out, or you can choose to have your feet tucked under like that. And again, this is totally and utterly to do with preference. I think, Tammy, you prefer to have your feet out, don't you? Yeah. And then the other thing with frog that you can do is take a bolster and bring a bolster underneath your torso, which is just making it more comfortable. And then here we have Nicola, who's in frog from the front position, and arms are just really, again, assisting you in the pose. Your arms can be out in front, you can have your arms folded, anything you like, really. And this is just a nice stretch through the inner thighs, adductor muscles, the adductor group. There's 5 adductor muscles going down the inner thigh, so 10 altogether, and they knit under the pelvic floor and really help to stabilize the hip, and they bring the leg into the midline. So just as a reminder, if any of the poses that you are feeling it's uncomfortable and you want to come out, just come out. There's no obligation to stay in the poses. And they can get really physically intense, they can get really emotionally intense. And although there's a sense of allowing things to unravel and things to happen, also we are cultivating a listening out. So Yin is all about coming inwards, Yin is inwards, Yang is outwards, it's exterior, it's more superficial, and Yin is much more dense, and it's about coming down and inwards. And really cultivating this ability to listen to our inner selves. You know, we so often habitually override our inner voice. And really it's about coming down and inwards and listening to that. Listening to our inner selves. Okay, so slowly coming out of frog, and we're going to come into a half pigeon. So I'm going to show you 3 variations of half pigeon. Half pigeon is a really kind of complicated pose. The first variation is that if you're doing frog against the wall, you can come straight into half pigeon against the wall, that you have your foot up against the wall, which is acting as a prop. And so you can just release your shoulders down. You don't have to hold your leg up with your shoulders. And then you're getting this nice stretch through the right back of the right butt cheek. So the other way to do half pigeon in Yin, we call it sleeping swan. that you have your leg, your knee at a right angle, and then you fold over that leg. And you're getting this nice stretch through the back of the right hip. So back of the right hip is the glute muscles and the rotator muscles. Half pitch in this, Tammy, if you just come up for a minute. This foot can be up here, or you can bring it down a little bit. And it can go from that whole spectrum right underneath your hip to all the way up here, depending on your preference. And the higher up it is, the more external rotation you're getting into your hip joint, and it makes the pose more intense. So whichever is your preference, up or down. And then you're just going to lie with your full body weight on it. So the reason why this sleeping swan is a little bit more intense is because your body weight is pushing down onto the stretch, and that can make it quite intense. The other option, which Nicola is doing here, is on the back. So it's very similar to the wall pose, but the foot is down. You can hold the leg up by bringing your hands underneath the back of your thigh muscle, or you can also choose to push the leg down. So here, you're bringing the thigh across the midline, and this means you might get the stretch a little bit more up through the glutes as opposed to the deep set rotators, which come a little bit more across the back of the butt cheek. So 3 variations, and remembering that sleeping swan, it's really crucial to find your preferred variation because it's such a nice pose. You're getting into, like, at the back of your butt, there's a lot of muscles, so you're getting into the 3 glute muscles and the 6 deep rotators. Okay, so we're going to swap over and come to the other side. So against the wall, really simple. On your back, really simple, a little bit more tricky going on the side. So it's really nice, runners obviously using their glute muscles a lot, hopefully. So nice pose to stretch out the glutes, nice pose to stretch out the rotators. And again, remembering that one side can be really different from the other side. So always adjusting your pose to suit your body. And this pose, particularly actually the one that Nicola is doing, it can really help to work this one down through the IT band. So that IT band is a band of fascia that goes from the top of the hip bone all the way down into the tibia bone, the iliotibial band. And it can get really tight on runners, so this can start to help to ease the IT band out, stretch it a little bit. The IT band gets really tight in runners, particularly because that movement, the gluteus maximus muscle, which inserts into the IT band, that push off is the responsibility of the gluteus maximus muscle as you push off and propel yourself forward. And as that muscle inserts into the IT band, it can get tight. So the toe stand that we did right at the beginning also really connects into the gluteus maximus muscle, and that ability to push off from your big toe is really important in running. So you want to create the flexibility as well as having a rigid foot position to allow for the push-off, and that connects up into the gluteus maximus muscle. So remembering that our body is all connected, all related, and remembering too that our body is a dynamic structure. It wants to be moved. The fascia, key way of stretching and moving fascia is by moving our body in lots of different planes of motion, which is essentially what we're doing in our yoga poses. So this pose is a continuation working through the gallbladder and liver meridian. So frog working through the inner line, which is the liver meridian, and then the paired organ, the gallbladder, which works through along the outside of the legs, down through the seams of the body. Related to the motion of anger, and very much to do with projecting and pushing ourselves forward, just like the glute muscles push and propel us forward. Okay, and very slowly coming out of this pose. And we're going to work directly into a cat-tail pose. So cat-tail, you're going to work, do you want to stay up with your head up here? Thanks. Cat-tail, you're going to start to roll onto your right side. And then you bend your left knee up. You can take a block underneath your left knee, and you're going to take your right leg and bring that right leg behind you. So this is a really nice stretch to start to get through that whole front of the right thigh, through the quads and through the hip flexors. And then what you do with your arm, you can bring your arm, that bottom arm underneath your head to find it. So little adjustments with cat-tail is that you really need to get that right leg right behind you. You might need to support your knee up onto a bolster or a block, which just helps a little bit. And you want to get that right leg up. So Tammy has chosen to bring her arm underneath her head, which is a really nice support. Have you got the pose? Do you feel it? So this is actually, there's not that many variations in this pose, but it's really just about making sure that right leg is right behind so that right leg, the knee is behind the hip, so you have it in extension, and that's when you're going to really start to get the stretch through the right thigh. You got it? So this is a really nice pose. Not only does it work through the quads, but you can start to work it through the front of the hips as well. So you feel this really nice stretch coming up into the front of the hips. Obviously, runners, the quads get really tight, and also hip flexors. That constant motion of bringing the knees up into the torso. It's really nice to start to open these hip flexors out. So cat-tail is also bringing a little twist into the spine, so it's kind of working a little bit on the spine and the central nervous system running through the spinal column. And this pose 2 is working through the front line, so we're working through the spleen and stomach meridian line, which runs down through the front and through the front of the thighs. So very much to do with our ability to overthink and over-worry. So coming into these poses can start to bring us more into balance, allow us to come out of our thinking mind and having those thoughts that go over and over in our mind, and start to release them a little bit. And then slowly we're going to come into the other side. So releasing, and this time rolling onto your left. So remembering in your own practice, you can always have a rebound between sides and between poses. So it's taking this back. Right leg. Do you want a bolster underneath that? So you can have a bolster underneath the knee, which just helps to bring that leg up a little bit. Have you got it? Yeah. And finding that nice stretch through the left thigh. Have you got it, Tammy? So a nice thing to do with this pose, which is a kind of alternative, you can choose to straighten that leg up. So when you straighten, I'm going to bring it under here. When you straighten that leg up, you can put that foot against a wall. Tammy's just using Kieran as a prop. You can just have that leg straight, which is actually going to intensify the pose as well. Does it make it more? Yeah. And then Nicola's just in the pose. You can have a block underneath the knee or not. Do you want a block? Yeah. So preference, always looking for preferences. So as we work on the front line of the body, working through the quads and the hip flexors, then this can also start to really calm us down. As these poses, these frontline poses, the energy has a very calming and grounding effect on us. It's all related to the earth element and the idea that the earth has all our fruits and vegetables, so it's also connected to the way we eat and how we eat our food. So spleen and stomach is a really important meridian line in terms of grounding, but it's also connected to our digestive system, how we digest food, our attitude and our approach to food. So it's also the way to get really good energy into spleen and stomach is the food that we eat, how we eat, whether we eat slowly, what kind of food we eat, how long we take to prepare our food. So there's the whole backdrop behind that as well. If we eat vegetables in season, and the Chinese are very much believers of eating a combination of both raw food and also cooked food, depending on the time of the year. And food is medicine. and then very slowly coming out of the cat tail and coming into the final relaxation, Shavasana. So you can have Shavasana on your back or your front. You can have a bolster underneath your knees. Do you want a bolster, tell me or not? No bolster for you. No bolster. So you can choose to have a bolster underneath your knees and then feet out, arms by your side. You can have your arms onto your torso as well. And then just feeling the weight of your bones, your sacrum, your skull. And then very slowly starting to bring awareness back into your body. So wiggling your fingers and your toes. Choosing either to hug your knees in or bring your arms over your head to stretch yourself out. So just allowing your body to go instinctively where it wants to go. And then hugging your knees into your chest. And then rolling up into a seated position at the front of your mat. And then just with your eyes closed, taking your hands in prayer at your heart center. Just taking a moment to be thankful for the practice of Yin. And raise your thumb knuckles to the center of your forehead. Namaste. Thank you.